She sold the car I bought her and pocketed $18,000. Told Mom it was stolen. Mom called me crying. I listened, said nothing, then sent Mom one screenshot. The marketplace listing, posted from my sister's own account, time-stamped 11:42 p.m. the night she reported it stolen. The group chat exploded in 4 seconds. But the worst part for my sister wasn't the screenshot. It was who else I forwarded it to. When my mother called me sobbing at 6:13 in the morning, I already knew what had happened. I didn't know every detail yet. I didn't know how far my sister had pushed the lie, or how many people she'd dragged into it, or whether she'd already started rehearsing her wounded little girl voice for the police. But I knew something had happened with the car, because my sister only ever called Mom before sunrise, when she needed a witness, not comfort. I stared at the screen buzzing on my nightstand. Mom. Outside my apartment window, downtown was still washed in that blue-gray hour before morning. My studio monitors sat silent on the desk in the corner. A half-finished mixing session for an indie band blinked from my laptop. I'd fallen asleep in yesterday's black hoodie after getting home from the venue around 2. My whole body felt heavy in that old familiar way. Too many late nights, too many load-ins, too many years of making other people sound good, while my own life stayed messy and unresolved. The phone kept vibrating. I answered on the 4th ring. "Nigel," my mother gasped, voice breaking. "Oh, thank God you picked up." I sat up slowly and rubbed a hand over my face. "What happened?" "It's your sister," Mom said, and immediately began crying harder. Her car is gone." I said nothing. "She went outside this morning, and it was just gone. Gone, Nigel. She says it was stolen in the night." Still, I said nothing. Mom filled the silence the way she always did when she felt guilty. "I know you two haven't been getting along, and I know this is awkward because you helped her so much, but she's a mess. She's completely hysterical. She called the police. She said she didn't know who else to call and—" I swung my feet to the floor and looked at the framed photo, leaning crooked against the wall beside my desk. It was from 2 Christmases ago. Mom in red, me looking exhausted. My sister, Tessa, smiling like she'd never taken a knife to anyone's back in her life. "What exactly did she tell you?" I asked. Mom sniffed. "That she parked outside her building around 10:30. That when she went down this morning for work, it was gone. She thinks someone targeted it because it was still in such good condition." Of course it was in good condition. I had bought it, not for her birthday, not for Christmas, not because she deserved something nice. I bought it because 8 months earlier, Tessa had shown up at Mom's house with mascara tracks down her face, saying her ex had drained their joint account, left her with unpaid rent, and taken the old Honda they'd been sharing. She said she couldn't get to work. She said she was drowning. She said she just needed one person in the family who believed in her. And because I had been the reliable one since I was 17, because being the reliable one gets stitched into your skin until it feels like morality, I stepped in. I was 32, a sound engineer who spent most weekends in black t-shirts behind consoles, while drunk people screamed along to songs they only half knew. I made decent money when touring season was good, and almost none when it wasn't. But I had savings. I had discipline. I had spent years learning how to fix my own gear, negotiate my own rates, and live beneath my means. Tessa had spent those same years lighting through every bridge she crossed and then acting surprised by the smoke. I found her a used silver Lexus in excellent condition from a widow in Oak Park whose husband had babied it like a museum piece. I paid cash. $18,000. My largest single purchase for anyone in my family ever. Mom had cried then too, but those were grateful tears. "You've always had the biggest heart," she'd said. Tessa had hugged me so tightly in the driveway that anyone watching would have mistaken her for sincere. 3 weeks later, she was already calling it my car in that possessive, lazy way people do when they don't want to think about cost. 2 months after that, she complained it was kind of old lady coded and asked if I'd help her trade up. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. Now Mom's voice trembled through my phone. "Nigel, are you there?" "I'm here." She's devastated. I looked toward my laptop, then reached for it. Mom's breathing hitched. "Please don't do that." "Do what?" That cold thing you do when you're angry. This isn't the time. That almost made me laugh. For years, my family had confused silence with passivity. Maybe because I didn't shout like Tessa. Maybe because my job taught me to listen first, react second. In live sound, panic is contagious. If a monitor feed dies mid-show and you start flailing, everyone else starts flailing too. So I learned to stay still. Learned to let people reveal everything while I adjusted levels. My sister had mistaken that stillness for stupidity. "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm listening." And I was. I listened while Mom repeated Tessa's story in full. The late night return from dinner with friends, the parking spot under the street lamp, the missing glass, the someone must have had a key copier nonsense. I listened while she said the police report had already been started. I listened while she softly suggested that maybe, if I still had the purchase paperwork, insurance might need it. That was the moment I opened Facebook Marketplace. The ad was still live, 2018 Lexus ES 350. Excellent condition, clean title, 84K miles, $18,500. OBO, need gone ASAP. There were 6 photos, exterior, interior, odometer, trunk, engine, VIN plate, posted from Tessa M. Timestamp 11:42 p.m., the same night she claimed it had been stolen. I zoomed in until the pixelated numbers sharpened. 11:42 p.m. I imagined her sitting cross-legged on her couch under the yellow lamp she always said made her place feel expensive, uploading the listing, maybe sipping wine, maybe congratulating herself for being clever. Sell the car, pocket the cash, cry to Mom, and let the family close ranks around her. That was her usual system. Cause damage, manufacture tears, collect loyalty. Mom was still talking. "And I just think right now she needs her brother." I took a screenshot. Then another, wider one, showing the account name, profile photo, and timestamp. "Nigel," Mom said again, uneasy now. "Why are you so quiet?" Because I was done being the family's emergency fund with a pulse. Because I was done watching Tessa wreck things and call it misfortune. Because I had spent years smoothing over her disasters while she called me controlling any time I asked where the money went. Because 6 months ago, she had borrowed $3,000 from me for back rent and then posted from a rooftop bar in Miami 2 days later with a caption about healing. Because last Thanksgiving, she told our cousins I only helped people so I could feel superior. Because every kindness I'd extended to her had been stripped for parts and resold. I sent Mom one screenshot. Nothing else. Just the image. Marketplace listing. Tessa's name. 11:42 p.m. For 2 full seconds, there was silence on the line. Then Mom inhaled so sharply, it sounded painful. "What is that?" "The car wasn't stolen," I said. I kept my tone flat, controlled, engineer's voice. The voice I used when singers melted down in the booth and drummers swore their click track was off even when it wasn't. "She listed it for sale last night," I said, from her own account. Mom stopped breathing for a moment. Then, faintly, "No, she told you it was stolen this morning, but she posted the listing at 11:42 last night." "No," Mom repeated, weaker this time, not because she believed me less, but because she was already starting to believe me more. I heard muffled movement on her end. A door opening, her voice suddenly farther away. "Tessa!" Then the line crackled as she came back. "Nigel, maybe someone hacked her account." There it was. The first reflex, not truth, protection. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the waveform frozen on my monitor. The photos were taken in her parking garage. You can see her building number reflected in the rear window. Mom said nothing. "And before you ask, yes, I saved the listing." A beat passed, then another. "I don't understand," she whispered. That part was true. Mom had spent decades treating Tessa's selfishness like weather. Unfortunate, unavoidable, something the rest of us just had to dress for. She understood drama, she understood tears. But motive? Deliberate betrayal? That required admitting she'd raised a woman who would steal sympathy from her own mother before breakfast. My phone buzzed with a new message. Family group chat. "Tessa, someone stole my car. I can't stop shaking." 2 seconds later. "Mom, Nigel sent me something. Then I dropped the screenshot into the group. The chat exploded in 4 seconds. Uncle Darren, what am I looking at? Cousin Leah, is that your account? Mom, Tessa, answer me now. Tessa, this is insane. Aunt Rena, 11:42 p.m. Myrrh. Tessa, my account was hacked. Cousin Leah, girl, be serious. Uncle Darren, why would a hacker sell your exact car from your exact account? Mom, Tessa, I watched the typing bubbles appear and vanish like faulty stage lights. Then Tessa called me. I let it ring. She called again. I let it ring. A third time. Voicemail. A minute later, the texts started. Tessa, are you out of your mind? Tessa, take that down right now. Tessa, you always do this. Tessa, you want everyone to hate me. Tessa, call me. I nearly admired the speed. She hadn't even paused long enough to choose a believable lie. She just went straight to offense. Classic Tessa. She always treated exposure like abuse. My phone lit up again. This time my mother. I answered. Tell me the truth, she said, voice trembling with fury now instead of grief. All of it. So I did. Not the emotional truth, not the years of resentment. Just the facts. Clean, simple, undeniable. I told her the title had remained in my name because Tessa had never reimbursed me a cent. I told her I had the bill of sale, the registration history, the insurance records. I told her that if she had sold the vehicle, she had sold property that legally wasn't hers to transfer without my signature. That landed. You mean, Mom's voice faltered. You mean she didn't just lie to me? She committed fraud, I said. The word hung there. Fraud. It sounded ugly, official, adult, much harder to excuse than bad decision or spiral or mistake. From the group chat came new chaos. Tessa, I was going to tell Nigel. Leah, after you lied to Grandma too. Tessa, it's not what you think. Uncle Darren, then explain it. Tessa, I needed the money. Mom, you told me to call the police. Tessa, because I panicked. Ah, there it was. Not remorse, just panic. I stood and crossed to the kitchenette, suddenly wide awake. I filled the kettle and set it down harder than necessary. My apartment was small. Exposed brick on one wall, black acoustic foam on another, cables coiled neatly in milk crates near the door. Everything in it had been chosen carefully, paid for slowly, maintained because replacing things cost money I didn't waste. Maybe that was why Tessa had always resented me. To her, discipline looked like judgment. Mom spoke more quietly now. Nigel, did she sell it already? I don't know, I said. But I know who to ask. That was the part I hadn't told anyone yet. The worst thing for Tessa wasn't the screenshot. It was who else I had forwarded it to. Not just Mom. Not just the family chat. I had sent it to 3 other people. First, to the woman from State Farm who'd once helped me untangle a claim after a touring truck sideswiped my parked van outside a venue in St. Louis. I still had her email because competent people are worth remembering. Second, to a lawyer I occasionally did audio work for. Corporate conference gigs, clean money. Easy clients who had once told me over catered chicken that family theft cases get ugly because everyone wants to call it a misunderstanding until paperwork appears. And third, most importantly, to the buyer, because Tessa was sloppy. The marketplace listing linked to a public comment from an interested buyer asking, "Still available? Can meet tomorrow morning if title ready." His profile was public too. Local guy. Profile picture with 2 kids and a Labrador. He'd left his phone number and a follow-up comment before she deleted it. I had copied it first, so while Tessa was busy melting down in the family chat, I sent him a calm message. Hi, I'm the legal owner of the silver Lexus listed by Tessa M. She does not have authority to sell this vehicle. The title is in my name. Contact me before exchanging any money. Then I attached proof. Registration, VIN. My ID with the same surname. He replied 6 minutes later. Jesus. I was supposed to meet her at 9. Thank you. That was when I finally felt something close to peace. Not triumph. Not yet. Just the clean internal click of a fader settling into place. Signal restored, feedback cut. Mom was crying again, but quieter now, less for Tessa and more for the shape of reality rearranging itself around her. I can't believe she would do this. I didn't say I can. I let her arrive there alone. She keeps saying you're overreacting, Mom whispered. I almost smiled. Does she? She says you bought it for her, so it was basically hers anyway. And the 18,000 she planned to keep. Mom didn't answer. Steam began to whisper from the kettle. In the group chat, Tessa had shifted strategies. Tessa, Nigel always held that car over my head. Tessa, he acts generous, but everything comes with strings. Tessa, I just wanted something that was actually mine. Leah, by selling something that wasn't yours. Uncle Darren, stop digging. Mom, Tessa, did you or did you not file a police report? Tessa, I said I started one. Mom, answer the question. Tessa, wow, okay, everyone hates me cool. Victim mode. Also classic. Mom, I said, pouring water into a mug. Listen carefully. If she tries to sell it, and if she reports it stolen while the title is in my name, that doesn't stay inside the family. Do you understand? I do. Good. What are you going to do? I looked at the dawn creeping across my window. What I should have done years ago. That answer sat between us. My mother had never liked direct statements. They left too little room for reinterpretation. By 9:30, Tessa was pounding on my apartment door. I knew it was her before I checked the peephole. No one else knocked like the world owed them entry. I opened the door, but kept the chain on. She looked immaculate for someone having a moral collapse. Oversized sunglasses, sleek ponytail, expensive-looking blazer over a white-ribbed tank. If you passed her on the sidewalk, you'd think she was headed into a branding meeting, not a confrontation over fraud. You have got to be kidding me, she snapped. I leaned against the doorframe. Morning. Take the chain off. No. Her mouth tightened. You're humiliating me. No, I said. You did that yourself. She yanked off the sunglasses. Her eyes were red, but I'd known her too long to be moved by redness alone. Tessa could cry on command at 15. By 23, she could cry while lying. By 29, she could cry, lie, and check whether the lighting was flattering. You had no right to message that buyer. I'm the legal owner. You bought it for me. I let you use it. Oh my God, hear yourself. She laughed harshly. This is why nobody can stand doing anything with you. You always need control. I looked at her for a long moment. Did you tell Mom it was stolen because you thought I'd stay quiet? The question hit harder than I expected. Her expression shifted, not to guilt, but irritation. The irritation of someone whose trick should have worked. I needed the money, she said. There it was again, as if need erased theft. For what? I asked. She folded her arms. That's not your business. But the car was. You have no idea what pressure I'm under. No, I said. I have a very clear idea. I've been underwriting it for years. Something flashed in her face then, rage sharpened by truth. You love this, she hissed. You love making me look like the mess so you can play savior. I laughed, then, actually laughed. Because once you hear the same script enough times, the lines lose their power. Tessa, I said, you sold a car that wasn't yours, lied to Mom, nearly dragged police and insurance into it, and we're going to pocket $18,000. This isn't me making you look like anything. She went still. For the first time, I think she realized I wasn't going to soften. No private damage control, no closed-door rescue, no brotherly cleanup. You sent it to a lawyer, she said suddenly. So she'd found that out already. Yes, her face drained. Mom told me. I also sent it to the buyer. Her lips parted. And to an insurance contact, that was the moment fear finally got through. Not embarrassment, not family shame. Consequence. You wouldn't, she said, but it came out then. I met her eyes. Try me. We stared at each other through the gap in the chained door. Years of family mythology collapsing in the space between us. She had always believed my silence meant surrender. She had built her adult life around the assumption that I'd rather absorb a blow than expose one. She had confused restraint with weakness. Behind her, the hallway light buzzed, faintly. Somewhere downstairs, a door shut. City life going on like normal, while one specific lie died in real time. Finally, she lowered her voice. What do you want? Not how do I fix this? Not I'm sorry. Just the price. That answered everything. I want my keys, I said. I want the full truth in the family chat. And I want you to understand this is the last time your mess reaches into my life. Her jaw clenched. You're serious? Yes. You'd really press charges against your own sister? I took a breath. There are moments in live mixing where a room is on the edge of feedback, just one frequency starting to ring. If you hesitate, it grows. It screams. It ruins everything. You have to cut it fast, clean, without apology. Yes, I said. She stared at me another second, then reached into her purse and pulled out the spare key fob. She slapped it against the door so it clattered to the floor inside. This is insane, she muttered. No, I said, this is overdue. She put her sunglasses back on with shaky hands. You think you've won something. I bent, picked up the key, and straightened. No, I think I've finished something. Then I closed the door. The family chat stayed quiet for nearly an hour after that. Then finally, Tessa. I lied. The car wasn't stolen. I tried to sell it without talking to Nigel. I panicked and told Mom the wrong thing. I'm handling it. No apology. Of course not. But the admission was enough. Enough for Mom to stop begging me to be patient. Enough for Uncle Darren to privately text. Should have happened years ago. Proud of you. Enough for the buyer to back out safely. Enough for the lawyer to tell me I had a strong case if I chose to pursue one. In the end, I didn't press charges. Not because Tessa deserved mercy, because I deserved distance. I repossessed the car that afternoon with paperwork in hand and a locksmith arranged by the lawyer's office. Tessa watched from the curb outside her building while I drove it away. She didn't cry that time. No audience worth performing for. Mom didn't speak to me for 3 days after. Maybe out of shame. Maybe because she didn't know how to talk to the son who had finally stopped cushioning her daughter from reality. Then she called and asked if we could have lunch. Just us. At lunch, she looked older, not physically, morally, like some structure inside her had sagged. I kept thinking she'd grow out of it, she admitted over untouched soup. I know. I made excuses. I know. Her eyes filled. Did I do that to you, too? Make you responsible for things that weren't yours? I sat back and let the question settle. The old version of me would have lied to protect her, would have softened the edges, offered her a way to feel better without learning anything. But that version of me had cost $18,000, countless sleepless nights, and more resentment than I cared to carry into the next decade. Yes, I said gently. You did, she cried then. Real crying, the kind that doesn't check whether anyone is watching. And maybe that was the first honest moment we'd had in years. A month later, I sold the Lexus myself. Not for $18,500. The market had shifted. I got $17,800. Fair price. Clean sale, clean title, clean ending. I put the money back into my savings, paid down the last chunk of debt on my upgraded live rig, and took a 2-week contract with a touring jazz act that played quiet rooms with respectful audiences and no family drama in sight. Every night, I stood behind the console under dim blue lights and listened to good musicians trust me with the shape of their sound. It felt strangely like reclaiming my own life. Tessa still sends occasional messages on holidays. Tiny baited hooks. Hope you're well. Mom misses when we were all close. I've changed a lot, by the way. I don't answer. Mom and I speak now, but differently, more carefully, more honestly. She no longer asks me to help your sister out just this once. I no longer volunteer. As for Tessa, the worst part was never the screenshot in the group chat. It was the moment she realized I'd forwarded it beyond the family, beyond tears, beyond spin, into the hands of people who dealt in records, titles, statements, and consequences. That was the first time in her life she understood she couldn't cry her way out of a paper trail. And me, I learned something expensive, but useful. Some people don't experience love as love. They experience it as available credit. And the only way to stop being their bank is to close the account.